Every day, your City of Tempe staff goes above and beyond to make sure our community gets the best possible services and the most for our tax dollars. But how good is good? How do you measure it? And how do we know what we really need to make progress on some of our most pressing issues? To guide us, we developed a series of goals designed to help us improve our community based on our Tempe City Council's 5 strategic priorities. Reaching for excellence, we are comparing ourselves against the rest of the nation as well as ourselves. Some of our goals will help save lives. Some of them will help us save money. All of them will help us make Tempe a better place. Tempe Accelerates is an opportunity for you to get involved. Hear what city staff and community partners are doing to reach our goals. Your role? You are a vital part of our community. Share your ideas and help us craft better solutions. Ask questions. Be part of the conversation either in person or online. Check tempe.gov/Tempe Accelerates for dates and times of our next programs and collaborate with us at Tempe City Hall. Today, we will hyper-focus on 2 performance measures. Each presenting team will have 10 minutes to share data, strategies, and progress on a performance measure. Then, you will have about 10 minutes to ask questions or offer suggestions and ideas. On the back of your agenda, we have resource questions to help you participate in the conversation. Also included with your agenda is a quick survey with space you can use to include any ideas or suggestions you might have about today's topics. Thank you for participating. Now, let's accelerate.
Good afternoon and welcome to Tempe Accelerates. We have a couple of interesting presentations this afternoon: post-secondary school achievement rate and veteran supportive community designation. It looks like our first team is in place and ready to start presenting. So without further ado, go ahead.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marie Raymond. I'm a Human Services Manager with the Education, Families, and Community Support section of the Human Services Department.
Good afternoon, I'm Rachel Yanoff. I am the Executive Director of Achieve 60 Arizona, which is the state post-secondary attainment goal for the whole entire state of Arizona.
All right, so our presentation today, if I can get it going, maybe not. Doesn't want to advance for me. We'll get there. So, thank you. Our presentation today aligns with City Council Priority 3, which is quality of life. So enhancing the quality of life for all Tempe residents and workers through investment in neighborhoods, parks, the arts, human services, and city amenities with an emphasis on equity and diversity. This is Performance Measure 3.09, which is to achieve a rate of 65% for Tempe residents who have a post-secondary certificate, 2-year degree, or 4-year degree by the year 2030. And just to note, when looking at this measure, we're specifically looking at adults ages 25 to 64. So as a city, we aim to help our residents be prepared to achieve their career and life goals. And when an individual is able to do that, they become a thriving and contributing member to our community. But in order to fully thrive, individuals need to be able to support themselves financially. Educational attainment has a long-term impact on a person's income learning ability over their lifetime. So as this chart shows, the more education a person has, the less likely they are to be unemployed and the higher their earnings are.
All right, so as a state, this measure is really important for a whole bunch of economic reasons. First and foremost, if you look at that first big bold number, that's just saying, what if we were to increase educational attainment so that Latino attainment and white attainment is at the same level, which it currently is not. But if we were to do just that, so just not doing all of the work, just one part of the work, we would see an annual boost to our economy of $2.3 billion. If we were to do this work perfectly, which is bullet number 2, and we were actually to see 60% of our adults achieving a post-secondary attainment level perfectly matched with a job that fits their skills and abilities, that in and of itself is a $7.6 billion annual return for our state in both tax dollars that we can have from more employed or more highly employed individuals, but also social benefits like less people on our social systems, less people in jail, less people having to rely on emergency services. So a huge benefit to be had if we do this perfectly. And as I always tell groups, we might not hit perfect, but I'll take half of that. That's a lot of opportunity for us to think about how we can address some of the challenges in our K-12 shortcomings or our higher ed shortcomings. And then lastly, the return on investment for a graduate. So this is based on a 4-year degree, but in looking at what happens when a person has that ability to be, they're certainly more resilient, they're less likely to be unemployed, they're more likely to be employed at the level of which their education has prepared them. That person with a 4-year degree, the return on investment for that education is a $660,000 earnings over their lifetime. And when you figure that kindergarten through higher education, through a 4-year degree in our state institutions, so it's in a district school, in a state institution, we put in about $300,000, so we get about 2.5 times more out of that. So if someone asks you the question, is it really worth it? The numbers play out that it's absolutely worth it and then some. Further, it matters because there are real people behind this. So we have a moral imperative to do this work too. While dollars and cents are really exciting to some people, these little faces are what get me up every day. So right now in Arizona, our attainment rate for adults that are white is 54%. Our attainment rate for our adults who are Latino is 26%, which is a difference of 28%. There's nothing different in the mind and in the abilities of a person who's born Latino or born white. However, somehow along the way, we have almost a 30% gap. So morally, this is work we have to do, and these gaps are the same for looking at our Native American and our Black populations, all populations critical in Tempe and critical for our state. So what's the goal? For Arizona, the goal is 60% of adults 25 to 64 years old. And that actually represents about 1 million more people that need to move from the non-post-secondary attainment level to the post-secondary attainment level by 2030. For Tempe, the goal is 65% of adults in that same age range, 25 to 64-year-olds, which roughly represents around 26,000 people that are currently not in that post-secondary attainment level that need to move into that post-secondary attainment level. So either people who started and didn't complete, or people who have never pursued that post-secondary credential and completed. And you can see from this chart, or you can sort of see if you squint, we've had forward progress as a state. So the blue part of the bottom part of the graph, the blue line represents the slope we've been on, which is steadily increasing, but the slope we need to be on to hit these goals by 2030 is much more dramatic. And so all of the work that's being done here and across the state is critical, otherwise we will not meet these goals.
So where are we now? So presently, we are at 58.2% of Tempe residents having a post-secondary degree or certificate. In June of 2017, our Tempe City Council adopted the 65% goal, and that made Tempe the first jurisdiction in Arizona, and are we still the only? Mm-hmm. And the only, to set a higher goal than that of the state, so something we're proud of. If we look back to 2014 to see where we've progressed, we can see an incremental increase every year in degree attainment. Just to note, the large jump between 2016 and 2017 is due to the new tracking methodology adopted by the Arizona Board of Regents, which includes certificates and licenses at approximately 6.1% of the total.
So at Achieve 60 Arizona, we've identified 4 strategic areas for how we will get to this big goal. So first of all, we know we have to focus on the early childhood through 12th grade pipeline, because that is our future, and what we don't want to see is that we hit the goal in 2030 and then 2031 we fall back down. So we want to ensure that every student in Arizona has the opportunity to be successful and remain successful through K-12, post-secondary, and career. Secondarily, we know that we have an opportunity to do better with post-secondary access and success. So getting into post-secondary and completion of post-secondary. Thirdly, our workforce and our business development opportunity is a huge opportunity where employers and employees together can co-create how that sort of going back to school, skilling up, making sure that as we automate and globalize, jobs that are changing are not being deleted, they're just evolving. And then lastly, systems and structures. So how do we ensure equitable access for all people? How do we ensure systems and policies so that there are ways to enter and to be successful? So that whole sort of everything else, the potpourri of how we do this work.
So I want to highlight a little bit of the City of Tempe's work in each of these areas. So in the early childhood through high school space, we have several programs that not only support our youth, but they support our families as well through parenting education programs, through supporting early literacy efforts, and through ensuring our children have access to high-quality preschool opportunities through Tempe Pre, and supporting with some academic skills through our Experience Core program. In regards to making sure that all of our community members can access post-secondary opportunities, we have our College Connect program, and that is a tremendous partnership not only with our high school district and our elementary school districts, but also with our 2-year and 4-year post-secondary colleges and community colleges and universities. We also have an Engaging Adult Learners work group that's just been formed, and really looking at how do we engage adults in our community who may have started some type of post-secondary education, but life got in the way and they weren't able to complete, or adults who maybe never started but are interested in maybe improving their job outlook and would like to go to school and gain a certificate or licensure or degree. We also recognize that working with economic development within the city, working with our chamber and our business community is vitally important. We're fortunate to be able to launch this summer our Career Ready Tempe program, where we have paid internships for our high school students that have taken some career and technical education courses in advanced business services, and pairing them with Tempe businesses, and that's thanks to the city's innovation grant fund that we're able to do that. We also work with Arizona at Work through Maricopa County, and we have our Tempe's Best program to really look at equitable practices for including individuals with developmental disabilities in the workforce. And finally, with systems and structures, we're My Brother's Keeper community, so we are really looking at ensuring that all of our youth, particularly our young men of color, have equitable opportunities to achieve. We have a fantastic partnership we call our Tempe Education Partnership between the city, our school districts, and higher education. And then Achieve 65 Tempe, which is really our coalition of bringing everyone together to help support the work that we're doing to help us achieve that 65% goal.
And before we move, I just want to close the loop. So actually the work we do with our students in the pre-K and even in the K-12 situation, setting, allows for our families to have freedom to go back to school. So what we saw through the Tempe pre-program with that first year, 40% of parents went back to school when their students had a place to go during the day. So we see that at Achieve 60 as a total bonus project, right? And we're thinking about adults and big kids, and yet we've got, when little people have a place to go, the effect being that their parents are choosing to go back to school and get that certificate, get that license, get that degree.
So one of the challenges that we have in our community and statewide are the FAFSA completion rates. So FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and this application determines federal aid eligibility for college aid, such as grants, student loans, work study, and some scholarships. And research shows that students who complete the FAFSA are more likely to complete higher education. According to the U.S. Department of Education, 90% of students who complete the FAFSA application receive some form of federal aid to attend a post-secondary institution. So the state has set a goal of 50% for FAFSA completion, gradually increasing to 78% by the year 2030. As you can see, currently in the Tempe Union High School District, at 43% completion rate is slightly higher than the current state average. But we do know that there are disparities among some of our high schools with higher FAFSA completion rates at some and lower at others. So that's something that we're really hoping to help with, particularly with our College Connect program, really putting our College Connect mentors, and helping out our district counselors to really ensure that all students are completing the FAFSA. And so if you'd like any more information about any of the programs that we've talked about, please feel free to reach out to us. And at this time, we'd like to open it up to anyone to see if you have ideas on how we can hit that 65% goal by the year 2030.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Right back behind you.
So Donna Kennedy, Economic Development, I just want to give kudos to these ladies because when we share this information with our clients in economic development as we're doing business attraction, even retention expansion, the fact that Tempe recognizes education is of key importance and tying it to the business community is a lot of work, and it gets like herding cats for everything. So congratulations, kudos. I know everything you do. Just keep up your good work.
Other questions? I want to recognize and thank Dr. Kevin Mendeville, Superintendent from Tempe Union High School District, for being here today. Thank you. Got one over here.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for being here representing Achieve 60 Arizona. With the FAFSA completion, have you thought about doing an outreach similar to the Earned Income Tax Credit that we do through Tempe Community Council with your College Connect mentors? So maybe aligning that to tax time and hitting a different segment of the population in regards to the FAFSA?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. I think the FAFSA application deadline has now moved to October, so it's slightly off for tax season. But yeah, I know that the state has some thoughts behind initiatives to help increase FAFSA completion.
Right. One of the actually opportunities that we want to make sure we're maximizing is that people can use prior years' tax returns. So we're actually trying to get in front of families and students as fast as possible because a lot of, actually for all three of our universities in state, there are priority deadlines. And so if our students can get their FAFSA completed and filled in and apply earlier, they're going to have a better chance at more aid, at more opportunities. So what we need to do is figure out how to better communicate, and we're certainly working at the state to let our families understand that you don't need to wait for this year's tax return. You can use last year's and therefore get a head start. So a lot of work to be done on trying to dispel some of those myths. And luckily our partners at ASU are helping us think about technologies we could use, ways we could reach out to families and nudge a lot faster, because it's often a misperception of who's even eligible for the aid. And a lot more middle income families are eligible than they actually believe.
Dr. Mendeville?
Just one quick question. Is the FAFSA, is it an online application form or is it an app itself?
Both.
Both.
You can do it on your phone.
Thank you.
We're bringing the microphone around. In the meantime, I just had a quick question about the data. Our achievement numbers are pretty good. They're close to 60%, about 58%-ish. How does our gap break down in terms of the demographic gaps that we're seeing statewide here in Tempe? Do we have that information?
You know, I do not have that information readily available, but I think that's something that we could certainly look at. Yeah.
With regards to the FAFSA effort, and we've been in communication, I do want to applaud these two ladies too, because it's nice to be able to tout our relationship with the city of Tempe as we partner in educating all of our students. So that's an advantage and a bonus, I think. With regard to FAFSA, though, we made a real deliberate effort this year to target our schools where we knew they were underrepresented in terms of FAFSA completion. So we had a very concerted effort through our lead counselor, Mark Kulik, in collaborating with the College Connect, but on our end, going a little deeper. We have actually the data on that, on attendance for the many opportunity sessions that we had for FAFSA to understand that whole process throughout the community, both in Ahwatukee, but we wanted to have a primary emphasis in our northern Tempe schools because there's where we see some of the underrepresented populations. And so that data just came out, and I'd be happy to share with you, and it's favorable. So I think with those same kinds of efforts, I know my intention this year in meeting with principals and the academic assistant principals, we are targeting and making incremental goals each year so that we actually have that as a target priority, and then we're measuring those. So, and then we have an action plan where we are highlighting and indicating who will be responsible, and not one individual. It's a collective, collaborative effort we have systems of support, a multi-tiered system of student support that encompasses that element of what our kids need as well. And this is a big one. So we want to include that piece of data in our collection and the work that we do on behalf of our students.
Hi, thanks for your great work. In addition to things like College Connect, I know this talks about certificate programs. Has there been any effort in trying to increase the number of certificate programs and connecting students with those who may not want to go onto a college degree path?
Yeah, so College Connect, while college is in the name, we are also looking at career readiness types of activities as well. And so we recognize that for some individuals to access certain careers, they need a certificate or a licensure. So part of that is connecting them with what that looks like and what the pathway is that would make most sense for them to be able to obtain that certificate or licensure. So yes, we're working both in that space as well. So we're looking at the 2-year and 4-year degrees, but also looking at connecting folks with certificates and licensures.
And I'm going to cue you up because I don't remember all the details, but for the internship program you're starting this summer, they'll have a certificate through a program with ASU for work skills. The gear, no?
Oh, the ASU Edge?
ASU Edge.
Right, so using the ASU Edge platform to specifically work on the soft skills, right, to help them really gain those skills needed to be successful in the workplace. Yeah.
Okay, we're bringing the microphone back around. I also want to thank Dr. Jim Run for being here from ASU, another one of our Tempe education partners, along with Dr. Mendeville and the superintendents from Kyrene and Tempe L.
That's a great question on the course completers and the other kinds of assessments. We just have information from our CTE program. We've been refining our programs the last 2 years in cooperation with EVIT, and this year the state is recognizing 2 of our programs, specifically at Mountain Point in software development and in Corona del Sol in bioscience, where we had the highest on the state CTE assessments by program. That's kind of a huge advancement for us. So we're very proud of that, and we want to expand our completion rates, course completions and programming certificates for the students in a variety of our programs. So we're well on our way.
Very good. Anyone else? Got one in front here.
Hi, good afternoon. Real quick, I wanted to touch on 3, workforce business development. So it's the goal of attaining higher education, obviously very critical to the development of community, and whether that's certificates or college or whatever it happens to be. But the ability to retain that workforce, whether it's through a livable community or viable employment, how do you make that connection? Is there a specific connection that you guys can focus on or speak to in terms of retaining that viable workforce once they've achieved that post-secondary education?
I can talk a little about the state, and then I'll let Marie talk specifically about the Tempe, especially the internship program, which I just think is brilliant. But as a state, the reason that we're so focused on thinking about workforce and business development is that we know that the jobs of today are not the jobs of tomorrow, and that and that the speed in which jobs are changing is definitely quicker than the sort of speed in which we can catch up with programs all the time. So ensuring that we are having workforce and business development an equal seat at the table to be part of that conversation of how do we align and ensure that we are upskilling and training so that people can stay where they currently are living and that living wage keeps up with the current sort of cost of living. So the best example I can give is that, certainly for the East Valley, we have the East Valley Partnership where it is business leaders and it is educators coming together on a regular basis to address what are the jobs, what are the opportunities, what are the kinds of businesses that we're trying to attract, and how do we ensure that the educational institutions within our East Valley Partnership are able to meet the needs and develop and co-create together a viable pathway for all people. So that's probably the most tangible, big picture example.
Yeah, and I think your point about, educating our community, but then keeping them here, right? And having them be part of our workforce and retaining them. And I think that's what's so wonderful about the partnerships that we have, because we have this constant communication between economic development. So looking at, who are the employers that are coming into Tempe? What types of skills sets do they need? Working with our partners like ASU to help identify the course tracks that folks can go on so that they can obtain those positions within our city. And then obviously then the livability of the city as a whole, right, of really wanting to live here and work here, and the benefits to the community for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that, we have boots on the ground in economic development, so we connect like UAT, a big corporate locates that come here sometimes. They're bringing 1,000 jobs here, and they have specific training needs that we have. So we tailor programs to meet that need of the client that comes in. But not only attraction, and as Marie said, we have business retention and expansion programs where we're visiting and constantly, because IT skills especially, they're constantly changing. So depending on the business and what they need, we make the connections.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I was going to ask a snarky question like, are the governor and legislature aware of this? But let me ask it in a different way. In my understanding is you're a nonprofit, right? And you're referring to a statewide goal. Has the state actually adopted a goal? The state has?
So,
Legislature?
the legislature. So Achieve 60 was established as a goal in 2016. Governor's support, legislative support, the support of our Board of Regents, our community colleges, all three institutions, chambers. So it's actually, we have about 100 partners across the state of Arizona who've signed onto the goal. Signing onto the goal did not require anyone to put dollars down or commitment to certain policies or programs. So we're working on certainly all of the efforts to try to align so that we can say what are the policies, programs, and funding needs to meet these goals. So certainly trying to get a coherent idea behind that. But the governor is bullish about this and sees the economic upside of it for sure.
Thanks. Sorry.
Yeah.
That answered my question. I mean,
Okay.
It's one thing to say you support the goal, and it's another to actually invest in it. So thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you so much. Well done. Okay. Our next presenting team will be regarding Veteran Supportive Community Designation. Looks like they are approaching the table. Again, a reminder, if you have thoughts, comments, and questions after the presentations, we have forms in the back that you can pick up and write them down and send them to the teams later. So, all right, all in place? PowerPoint loaded?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kristy Griffin. I'm a Senior Management Assistant with Tempe Human Services. And with me today is Commissioner Abe McCann with the Tempe Veterans Commission.
Thank you for allowing me the time today. I am the designee on the Tempe Veterans Commission for the Arizona Coalition for Military Families. The ACMF is a private-public partnership that primarily focuses on building Arizona's capacity to assist active duty military veterans and their family members access resources. The creation of the coalition was in direct response to a primary need identified by the various organizations in the state that serve this community on a regular basis. It was founded in August 19th of 2009.
The Veterans Commission composition allows for 11 members, each appointed for 3-year terms. Each commissioner represents an existing United States military and veteran service area.
The Tempe Veterans Commission develops, or did I skip one? Oh, I'm sorry.
This performance measure falls under Council Priority Number 3, Quality of Life, which is enhancing the quality of life for all Tempe residents and workers through investment in neighborhoods, parks, the arts, human services, and city amenities with an emphasis on equity and diversity. Specifically, this performance measure 3.21 seeks to support those who serve by engaging Tempe employers to achieve a veteran supportive designation greater than or equal to the average of Valley cities as awarded by the Arizona Coalition for Military Families.
The Tempe Veterans Commission develops and promotes benchmarks as outlined by the Arizona Coalition for Military Families for assisting the city of Tempe and its business community to help earn the recognition as an Arizona Veteran Supportive Employer. The Commission assists in the creation and supporting community connections point to inform, guide, and direct military veterans seeking personal and professional enhancement services that may include education, mentoring, workforce support, health, and wellness. This performance measure seeks to assist with workforce support for veterans. This aligns with the mission of the Arizona Coalition for Military Families to build Arizona's capacity to care for and support all service members, veterans, their family members, and communities. The roadmap is a statewide plan that engages public and private sector organizations with a goal of connecting service members, veterans, and their family members to employment opportunities, training, and resources. This effort is funded in part by the Governor's Office of Youth, Faith, and Family, the Arizona Department of Veterans Services, and the Arizona Coalition of Military Families are the lead implementation partners. Veteran supportive employers are equipped to assist unemployed, underemployed, and relocating service members, veterans, and family members. These employers will receive training that results in knowing the value of these employees, how to connect with the pool of job seekers, and can effectively capitalize and retain employees. So how do we earn the Arizona Veteran Supportive Employer designation? Public and private sector employers of all sizes are invited to be part of the roadmap, which will focus on engaging organizations as AVSEs and strengthening recruiting, hiring, and retention of service members. Veteran and family members, the Arizona Coalition for Military Families will offer two different types of training. The first training is the Arizona Veteran Supportive Employer training, which consists of a 2-hour training block. This training is designed for managers, supervisors, human resource personnel, leadership, and it's a strong focus on filling out the requirements to become a veteran supportive employer. The second training that we encourage is the Military Veteran Resource Navigator training, which is about a half a day long, and it's more of a focus on resources and how to actively engage them as an employer to assist your veterans and their family members that may be part of your organization. It's important to note, too, that the city of Tempe was the first city to actually earn the title of Veteran Supportive Employer designation. And since then, we have other cities such as Chandler, Phoenix, Gilbert, Scottsdale have all followed along. So on average, if we look at these key cities of Chandler, Gilbert, Glendale, Mesa, Phoenix, and Scottsdale, they all average about 14 veteran supportive employers per city. Tempe at the moment has about 18. That's their average this year. One of the reasons that Tempe has kind of led the way and led the pack was, one, not only was the city the first city to become part of the program, but Tempe in general has kind of been a forward-thinking community. There's a lot of innovation here. There are a lot of employers that are coming to this area because of the university and things like that. And the city itself has been supportive through the Veterans Commission and other agencies in engaging these communities, or these businesses rather, and then helping them gain access to programs like we operate at the coalition. Our goal currently for 2020 is to have 30 of those in the city of Tempe. And if we look at this graph here, the graph will show kind of the growth of the program through the past 3 years. It's important to note on this that in 2017, when this program was still in its infant stages, it was still there was no clear plan yet. There was no implementation SOP or anything like that. And then late in 2017 is when I was hired to head up the roadmap and really kind of push this program a little bit further, assist with the marketing and the business development side of things. And in 2018, we had our biggest year. I like to think that the growth in 2018 was attributed, one, to actually having a department to head this up, having a staff, but also word of mouth really was a key figure. There were a lot of companies that were getting involved, seeing results in their recruiting, seeing results in their retention, and just gaining a better understanding of this community, of the military and veteran life cycle and things like that. So we saw a huge push. 2019 is going the same way. We are at 18 for the city of Tempe. We have several applications that are pending. We have meetings scheduled throughout the year, and I'm confident that we will be able to not only meet that, but break that mark. So a little bit more about the data. One of the reasons, or one of the things that we're showing is that job referrals increase. Now, one of the things that we all kind of know about in the employment world is that it's very hard to get an interview unless you know somebody. That's the old saying, right? You got to know somebody to know somebody. Well, the beauty of this roadmap and this veteran supportive employer is that a lot of these HR professionals that have taken the training, these recruiters, these directors, these people who are seeking to develop their workforce, they have a better understanding of what the military lifestyle is like. They have a better understanding of what those intrinsic skills are, those soft skills as some people may refer to them, what they are and how these people in these communities can actually benefit their businesses. And through the education, through the growing of network, we've kind of tackled that barrier. We have veteran supportive employers now that work with my network, and I'm the guy that knows you. And so when a military person comes to me, or maybe an HR professional comes to me and says, I need good candidates, now they know somebody. So that network is really growing, and it's really, starting to develop. And again, we had the greatest number of AVSCs in 2018. Currently, Tempe is second in that list. But as we move forward to 2019, I'm confident that Tempe will be back in first with that benchmark of at least 30. And that's a lot to do with, the Veterans Commission and then the support from the city as well. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to keep doing this good work? How are we going to get the program better exposure, better marketing? It's really all about kind of what we're doing right now. Greater engagement from things like the Tempe Veteran Commission, municipalities, things like the Chamber of Commerce, different departments within the city itself knowing of the program and then being able to discuss it as they interact with not only job seekers but other businesses as well. ASU has been a good partner in this as well. We work a lot with ASU to bring companies to meet with students, the veteran population, and explore different ways to connect. And then also, market this idea of being a veteran supportive employer. It is a designation from Department of Veteran Services. It is recognized by the VA and the Department of Defense. And as a company that may be looking to engage the military veteran community, it is a badge that you can market. And it's something that a veteran, no matter where they are in the world, if they look at a website, look at any online material, and they see that, then they know that not only is this company actively hiring military, but they have done things to make sure they're doing it properly, to really understand what the value of these employees are, and really understand ways that they can assist them when needed. So one thing that I would like to talk about, we'd like to educate and engage the City of Tempe departments, economic development, things like that, and provide them with more information so that when we have an opportunity to engage with an employer or even a job seeker, everybody is well-versed, well-educated on the program. As of now, we do have some challenges with that in the sense that the Arizona Coalition for Military Families and myself are a very small organization. There are 2 people in my department. I like to, so when you hear me talking about departments, it's me and another lady who is a military veteran spouse. And, our capacity to do this is kind of limited because of that. But if we can educate state departments or city departments and local resources to not only understand the program, but get them to a level where they are comfortable talking about it and sharing more information, then we really do have the opportunity to grow this pretty quickly. One thing that I would like to see is, at the very least, as the different departments in the city of Tempe interact with businesses, employers, just knowing who I am and knowing of my organization and knowing that I am on the Veteran Commission is a good step. Just knowing that, hey, you can call Abe, or you can contact the Veteran Commission, and we can get you connected with more information. So that's what I got.
Thank you very much. Let's see if there are any questions or comments for the team.
It's me again, Economic Development. Thank you for the introduction and having you here because As far as getting the word out, as you said, you need that as part of your next steps because you're limited availability, but we're happy to work and spread the news for you. We've got a couple of ideas that we're going, but thank you for your presentation. Again, outstanding for both presentations today. As far as what direction for economic development, where we're going, we couldn't have done it without the collaboration and partnerships. So thank you.
For your support as well.
We have the opportunity to, as part of our surveying of businesses in Tempe, talk about or ask questions about veteran-supportive employment, and being a veteran-supportive employer, utilizing sort of our existing business survey perhaps in the future. Is that something we're already working on or looking at? In terms of, I mean, if getting the word out is the issue, we have opportunity to do that through economic development. We do a survey tool, and we also have relationships with the Tempe Chamber. Is the Chamber another partner that's been engaged in this process?
Yes, sir. And one thing we are working on in regards with the Chamber and some of our other partners is creating a unique Tempe business designation with the Department of Veteran Services, so that not only would the Tempe businesses be recognized as being veteran supportive, they would also officially be recognized as a Tempe veteran supportive employer as well.
Help design the window sticker.
We're taking applications.
Great. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
One up front here.
Again, thank you very much for your presentation. Some of my specific concerns, I guess, would be demographic-wise, having a higher understanding of what our veteran population is currently, current employment rate for them, and how do we make those connectors? So, for example, I was in the military 26 years. I had a lot of junior personnel after their first or second tour decide to, well, I'm going to get out and go back to my hometown, and I know the community. That's where I want to live. That's all well and good, but understanding their opportunity there is critical. So when we look at the presentations that you do, I think it's important that companies and organizations such as the City of Tempe really understand what they're getting with the varying demographics, whether it's a 4-year service member or maybe a career service member, and being able to adapt those needs and having that broad range of military experience. So when we look at that, the presentations that you do, I saw 2 different ones. Do you specifically touch on kind of the different backgrounds and the uniqueness there, Abe?
So when given the opportunity to work with a company and present some of the veteran supportive employer training, one of the things that we like to do is I like to meet with the employer previous, get a really good feel and understanding for what their needs are as an employer. And in regards, when we get into discussing military culture and lifestyle, we do touch on the difference between a 20-plus year retiree as opposed to a junior enlisted person that, as you said, did a couple of tours and maybe 4 to 5 years and then removed them, got out of the military. We do that because in reality, that's one of the key factors in unemployment for the veteran community. So if I have a candidate such as yourself that's been in the military 20-plus years, you have an impressive resume, you have a project management background, you have done everything there is to do in the United States military and done so at a high level, otherwise you wouldn't have been around that long. Your job search and your transition into a private sector company is going to be completely different than another man or woman who signed up for college, did their 3 to 4 years, got the GI Bill, got out, and now they want to work. Great example is we have a program through the roadmap that is called Skill Bridge, and what it does is it offers internships for active duty military that are about to get out. So if they're within 6 months of separation, they can get ordered from their commanders and get approved to come work for a private company, and the Department of Defense will continue to pay them. If you look at the website and you look at these opportunities, we have entry-level opportunities on there for those people. Arizona Department of Transportation has some entry-level work crew. Crescent Crown Distributing has as an opportunity for someone to stock shelves at the groceries at night. Conversely, we also have a lot of project management internships on there, because what is really important in understanding that culture from those two different demographics of veteran is they also have completely different skill sets. I mean, there's always going to be the normal ones you hear about: hard work, discipline, we're on time, professional, et cetera, et cetera. But a 26-year non-commissioned officer in the military has a much greater skill set than a junior enlisted person, and an officer even more so as well. So it's crucial to our mission. It's something we pride ourselves on being good at. And it's also one thing that for businesses or your organization, whoever you are, you're working with the veteran community, we offer the ability to customize it to your needs.
All right. Any questions? Thank you again. Well done. Thank you. I want to again thank both of our presenters today for their time and their efforts here. And again, as you think of questions and comments and things that would assist them in continuing to work towards their goals, please notify them, or fill out the forms that we have in the back of the chambers. Looks like our next Tempe Accelerates will be on June 20th. We'll have two presentations, one on poverty rate, another one on housing attainability. So we will see you then. Thank you very much.
Send us your ideas and suggestions to tempeaccelerates@tempe.gov and visit us at tempe.gov/tempeaccelerate.